Was a girl running in a group. She had a high-speed motor in a 40 Ford coupe. She had a racing cam and a supercharged. Look at Buddy, hot rod and large. She's a hot rod. She's a hot rod.
Kia, they're out of the Super Bowl after 11 years running. They canceled their Super Bowl ad. That's sad. Of course, this is one of those years when everything's a little strange, everything's a little different. It's not like it used to be, or not like it was, let's put it that way. And if you know somebody that works at the Ford plant over here in South Chicago, they are cutting shifts and cutting back, and there's no other reason for it other than chips. Their lack of chips. And I'm not talking about Frito-Lays, Chuck.
Doritos? What we're looking at here?
I'm not talking about Frito-Lays.
No.
Intel chips. They had because of the pandemic, everybody noticed there was, the car manufacturers were shut down and then some of the suppliers were shut down, but nobody really thought about the electronics of it all. And out there in Silicon Valley, wherever they make these things, they don't have the Intel or whatever chips for the computer to run the different factions of the car. They need a set of programmed chips, and especially now with all this autonomous driving coming and electronic vehicles, they're different, and there's a lot more chips involved, a lot more computers involved. I pulled a Denali in the shop the other. I didn't pull it in, somebody else did. It had 11 onboard computers, Chuck.
Wow.
11 onboard computers on that car itself. So, and of course in that car, in those computers, how many chips are there?
Right, hundreds.
Oh, exactly.
Yeah.
So there definitely was a shortage of chips, and that's why the Ford plant is now going on what do you want to call it? They're going to be cutting shifts for a while. And Toyota just jumped all over VW to become the world's #1 vehicle seller in 2020. Yeah, VW was up there last year. VW led the league in 2019. And now Toyota. Believe it or not, Toyota. And that's just, I don't know. For some reason, of all the Asian imports, I think of Nissan the least. Okay, but Toyota's like the second one I don't think of.
Right.
I always think of Honda. When you think of imports, you think of Honda. I don't know why. I mean, it's like Subaru. Who thinks of Subaru? I don't think of Subaru. But the Toyota apparently is, well, of course, and you got to remember this is globally. And Toyota's big in the Asian countries, Chuck. They're big over there in China. They're big over there in India. Toyota's got their claws in a lot of places, a lot of different places. One of the stories around the country, around the world, around the car world that I've been wanting to talk about, and this involves a Tesla, but it's not the Tesla that's important here. It's Tesla Model X is Mountain View, California, in a big crash. The big thing is fighting the fire.
Right.
I've talked to several fire departments, my local one here, which I have a lot of friends in the fire department, and I asked, does anybody have an expert on putting out a lithium-ion battery fire? And they don't. I don't think anybody's really sure. These cars, they have taken this Tesla here was in a crash, was on fire. They put it out. How they put it out, I'm not sure. Maybe foam, I don't know.
Right.
You're not supposed to put
you put water, you put foam.
No liquid of any kind.
Right.
I know. But then they towed it to the repair facility, put it in the storage lot, and it caught fire again.
Went right back up again, right?
So, we've got grief. We've got to be able to put these cars out when they catch fire. As the electric vehicles proliferate, safety advocates and crash investigators are increasingly concerned about the risks lithium-ion batteries pose to emergency responders. That's the other thing.
Right.
What kind of danger are the firemen in, or the EMTs when they go to and there's a lithium-ion battery on fire? What kind of fumes? There's so much they don't know about lithium-ion and the fires. And the Teslas, Tesla's not the only one that uses lithium-ion. I think the only one that doesn't is Toyota's Prius.
You use nickel metal or something
They
like
use
that.
cadmium, nickel
NiCad?
cadmium.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, NiCad battery. But the other ones are all lithium ion, and that battery is well.
But like you said, it's not going anywhere, so they definitely need to start working together on figuring that out.
Oh, absolutely. It's got to happen.
And you don't want to see something where, like you said, an EMT or even, I think last time we talked about firefighters using the jaws of life on a live car, basically, things like that.
Oh, absolutely. And a spark.
Right.
And then poof, we got a battery going.
Mm-hmm.
Or an explosion.
Right.
I don't know. Can those batteries explode? I don't think anybody knows enough about this.
Well, and that's what the testing, it needs to be tested.
This is why they grounded that the DC 767 or
DC,
whatever.
you're showing your age talking about DCs now.
I know.
Is this
I'm old.
the Boeing Max?
Boeing Max. Well,
right.
This is the 767 they grounded because of
right.
lithium ion batteries. And they're dangerous. They're absolutely dangerous. What are you going to do? It's Nissan. Nissan says all new models in key markets will be electrified by the 2030s. 2030s, we're going to have all electric batteries.
Right.
All right, well, we're going to take a quick break here, and we'll be back, and we're going to start talking about something that's near and dear to my heart and near and dear to everybody's heart. Carjacking. We got to talk. We really do. 928 Car Guys, if you want to weigh in on this. But I'm going to go on record, and I'm going to say this, and I'll probably get yelled at for it, and I don't care. But the problem we have with carjacking now is all because of our manufacturers. The car makers have increased the carjacking. And how did they do that? They made it too tough to steal. The guys that used to go in the parking lots of the restaurants and the bars and steal cars can't do that anymore, Chuck.
Right.
Those days are over. That car is just too sophisticated. It's too safe. And that was the whole idea. Remember when the car makers, they were doing this for safety and that for safety. They can't steal this car. We're going to fix it so you can't do this and you can't do that. They have been doing this for 20 years, trying to make that car theft-proofed. And I think they've made it. Although I did read, Chuck, there's a guy in England came up with an app or a program on his phone where he can walk by you
right.
and get the code from your key fob out of your pocket, and then follow you home and steal your car later at a different time because he's got all the vibes he needs to start that car.
Well, and that's the thing, George, is we have to look at it from that perspective of, we've stopped being able to steal the car this way, but even, not only the fobs, they do that with garage door openers and things like that. We
get
don't,
in your house.
In cities where they have a lot of valet parking and things, these guys will go and they'll clone your fob while you're in the restaurant and things like that. So again, it's one of those things where, crime doesn't go away; it just changes. It gets more sophisticated, and you're right. That's the problem.
But it's been so sophisticated now. Hence my theory on the carjacking.
Right.
It is like a rite of passage in urban areas for these young kids, these gangs, to go out and steal cars.
Right.
They've been stealing cars for years, but it's as simple as get in there, hotwire it, and off you go.
The days of using a screwdriver. Or something
those days are over. The screwdriver and the pliers.
Right.
The only way they can steal your car now, Chuck, is with you in it.
Right.
They've got to have that fob. They've got to have you got to have some kind of device, because otherwise it's impenetrable. You can't steal it. That car is they have to take it with you at the stoplight. Now, Chuck, you were talking about this. You got caught the other night on the way home in the Dan Ryan.
Yeah. So, one of the things I think you wanted to talk about was this idea that in Chicago, for instance, they can't even keep up with the numbers. I'm looking here, and they're saying that somewhere in the neighborhood of, in the last few days, they've reported almost 200 carjackings just this month alone. So that puts you at about 10 carjackings a day.
Right, and
those
those are the cars that used to get stolen out of the bar parking lot.
Right, but But a lot
the
of
restaurant parking lot or the theater or something.
But a lot of those cars, that's happening at the gas pump. And like we mentioned yesterday, what happened, and we were trying to get to the bottom of this, is somebody was carjacked on the highway yesterday.
On the Dan Ryan.
So just a few minutes before I was on that same highway, somebody was carjacked. And you mentioned probably in traffic, which is an interesting idea, that somebody would just walk up to you. And because we know that's rush hour, somebody's just going to walk out onto the highway during rush hour and
stop and go.
Stop and point a gun in your car, and you're going to jump out, and they're going to take your car.
They're going to get out, and they're going to get in your car and go.
And so that's what happened. We believe that's what happened on the Dan Ryan yesterday evening during rush hour. But that's even, that becomes a scary thing because a lot of people say, well, I'm just going to drive through the city. I'm not going to stop. Well, now you don't have to. Now you could just be in traffic.
Exactly. Now, depending on the car, even if you have the key fob in your pocket and you get out of the car and walk away,
it'll still go, right?
It'll still run
right
until they shut it off.
Right.
Then they'll never start again.
Well, again, that's an interesting thing. I've heard a few stories of people where, the car started because the coat was in the house. It was close enough to the fob.
Oh.
And then the wife drives off and goes to the store, and then she realizes she doesn't have the fob.
She can't get home. I have had, now see my Ford, I have a new Ford 2020, and if I'm 10 feet away, if that fob is 10 feet away, the car won't start.
Okay.
I've left the keys actually in my scooter at the back of the car, and it wouldn't start.
Well, then that becomes the question. In that case, like let's say you leave your scooter, your coat or something, and then you get out. Does it lock, and now you've locked your fob inside, something like that?
Well, actually, my Ford won't let me lock the fob inside.
Really?
It honks the horn. If I go to get out of the car, I turn the car off, and I go to get out and say I'm stopping here at the donut shop or whatever. I go to get out, it'll toot-toot right off the bat because you left your keys in the car.
But that's the interesting thing about the technology is it's almost like it's trying to keep up with how we could screw it up. Do you know what I mean? That's the programmers, the engineers have to figure out how we're going to screw it up. But even the idea of who would have imagined you have a fob and then you leave it, in the house, but the car still starts until you leave.
Oh, absolutely. And you know what? The problem I have with this carjacking thing is they have made it to the point where these young kids that want to steal cars actually have to carjack you.
Right.
And the side effect of that is, what about, there was one where there was a kid in the back seat, in the car seat. The guy went into the 7-Eleven or whatever, and he came out, and the car was gone, and so was the kid.
But then he brought the kid back, and he yelled at the mother. So, what are you doing leaving your kid in the car? I carjacked it,
He was stealing the car,
right.
Exactly. And he was mad at the mom for leaving your kid in the car, and that's unattended.
Right.
But people are going to start getting hurt. People are going to get shot. There was just one the other day, a 15-year-old boy tried to carjack a person out here in the suburbs, and when he grabbed the door and opened it up, the guy pulled a gun and shot him. The driver of the car.
Right.
But it turns out the driver of the car was illegal. He wasn't supposed to have a gun anyway. He was a felon or something. It was all crazy crap. But that's what's going to happen. It's going to get more and more. It's going to get increasingly violent to the point where people are going to be getting hurt to get their carjacked because these young kids are desperate for the cars. That's income. They ship them off to a guy that strips them and sells the parts, or they retag them and send them overseas. I mean, there's still a market for stolen cars.
Right.
Don't get me wrong. The stolen car market has not gone away.
Well, even, I had somebody the other day talk about the catalytic converters. Those are still being stolen.
Oh,
you can cut off your car and things like that.
Oh, yeah.
But did you want to go over, I was just looking at the Chicago police put out some tips. It's common sense stuff, but they talk about, so for instance, be aware of your surroundings. Well, and obviously, like the question becomes, don't put up a fight. Well,
unless you want to get shot.
Right. Or
potential of getting shot or knifed or.
Right. Well, but then that becomes the question, though, is we talk about the car technology. I would think the next phase of this would be that if your car gets stolen. Remember we had LoJack and all that stuff back in the day?
Oh, yeah.
So, I mean, you would think now that with the technology we're putting into the cars, the next generation of cars, they're all going to have Wi-Fi. They're all going to have, they're going to have all the technology in it.
Oh, yeah.
So
they do now, man. Believe it.
What I'm saying, I mean, anybody who's buying a new car moving forward now. Mm-hmm. So we're going to have the technology now where if you get carjacked, you just let them go. And then on your phone or on an app or something, you can call an 800 number, you can do whatever, and they could say, okay, here's where the car is. I mean, and that was what I was telling you earlier. I said, imagine if you got out of your car and then you go out of the app and shut off the car, then the guy's going to get out and be mad at you because you killed his free ride.
You killed his free ride.
So that becomes the question is how are we moving forward? Are we going to have tracking on all the cars? But then for a lot of us, it becomes privacy concerns. It's like, well, if you could track my car when it's getting carjacked,
Exactly, you could track me wherever I'm going.
Right. And so that's been I know you don't want to talk too much about politics, but the incoming administration talked quite a bit about that, where we're talking about tax per mile and things like that. But then that's all based on data. It's based on private, there's GPS
data. There's
a lot of data about your whereabouts to put together that tax.
I got to think, Chuck, that data's out there anyway. I mean, mostly what's going on now is it's crazy. How many times have you found yourself like on Facebook and you just looked up something on Amazon a little while ago, and all of a sudden there's all these ads on Facebook for the very same thing you're looking at.
It just happened yesterday. The guy messaged me. I said, "There's got to be a coincidence, right?"
Yeah, it's a coincidence. Yeah, the data's out there and it's being used. It's being used against you. I just think the original challenge for the engineers was to make that car unstealable.
Right. And
they did.
They accomplished that. But again, that's the law of unintended consequences is, the idea that the criminals are going to say, okay, well, I mean, again, they're going to get smarter. They're going to find ways to get into your fob. They're going to find ways to get into your garage. They're going to find ways to hack that. I mean, that's the thing about technology. I remember you and I talked a while ago about the guys that showed how they could hack the Jeep and shut down a car. And I mean, we're going to see more of that. You're going to see more of once a car,
sophisticated hackers,
right?
Absolutely.
Once your car is on a network, once a car can be accessed remotely, people will hack it and they will use it for nefarious purposes.
Well, and you know what? If it's out there, if all that data, if all that stream is out there in the airwaves or in the cloud, you want to call it, whatever you want to call it, it's free for the taking.
Right.
For the right person, can get that data. I mean, I can't go in there and figure out how to do that, but I'm sure. Obviously, I'm not just sure. I know there's people that can do that.
Well, I don't want to be the guy to give out ideas, but think about now there are people that get their computer hacked and they hold it for ransom. Think of the next generation. They'll start holding your car for ransom. They'll say, "We've hacked your car. You can't access it. You can't open the door. You can't start it until you give us some money."
Don't call police. Bring us $1,000. Right. You can have your car back.
And if you call the police, we'll kill your computers and it'll cost you thousands of dollars to replace the computers.
Oh yeah, We'll fry your
insides. Yeah,
we'll let the magic smoke out.
Again, I don't want to give ideas, but I mean that's what's going to happen.
Oh yeah, it'll be hijacking for ransom.
Yeah.
Now that'll be the next challenge for the engineers.
Or maybe they'll lock you in your car. You'll be sitting in traffic and they'll say, your car has been ransomed. Give us $100 or we won't let you out.
Or call my wife and say your husband's locked in his car. We're not going to let him out.
Right. She might say, keep him. Let him, that's fine.
Mine would say keep him. Hand him some beer, hand him a 6-pack of beer. And
just crack the window.
Yeah. Let him have a beer and that'll be the end of that. No, that's going to be the next challenge is what do you do once a car has been carjacked? How do you stop that? You can't stop it. You're not going to stop a carjacking.
Right.
But how can you nip it? How can you keep it from falling apart?
Right. Well, and there's also an aspect of, I had my car broken into several times in Chicago, and there's also it's almost like when your house gets broken into, you feel violated.
You're exactly right. It
feels
private.
Right. You feel like your privacy's been invaded, and it took me a while. It's like thinking in my car, it's like the guy was in here, and said. So it's a weird thing when your privacy gets violated by a stranger that way.
Absolutely.